Well, tonight we have with us distinguished guest, Dr. Muhammad Arshad, for our monthly AIC lecture series. He will be speaking on the ulama's response to English and Western education in South Asia from 1803 to 2002. Dr. Arshad holds a master's in Arabic and a PhD in Islamic studies from the University of Punjab in Lahore. He's the editor of Urdu Encyclopaedia of Islam. He's the founder of Jihad al-Islam, a research journal, and he has been a guest lecturer at several universities and conferences, and is also a prolific writer, having published numerous papers in the fields of Islamic history, Hadith and Quran, and Islamic law, just to name a few. He is currently a Post-Doctorate Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania in the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations. Please welcome Dr. Muhammad Arshad.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. It is a pleasure to be here at American Islamic College, and it is really a nice occasion to see a bunch of scholars, leaders, and educationists, and some other people. For me, it is a occasion of pleasure, and it is also a time of great embarrassment. A person who lacks proficiency in English language finds it hard to communicate his ideas, his thought, and other things. And especially when he is facing such awesome gathering, so it becomes more embarrassing. So anyhow, I would try to communicate, to convey the message. So problems of accent will be there. So what I am going to do right now, I am just going to narrate a story, not making an academic presentation, just trying to narrate a story of the Muslim response of the ulama to modernism, to modern sciences and European languages in the South Asia. So my starting point is 1803. That is the year when the British occupied the Delhi, the capital of the Mughal Empire. And ending point is 2002. That is the year when the English language was introduced in the curriculum of Darul Uloom Deoband, the greatest religious seminary in South Asia. One can say that is the mother institution of the modern day madrasa in the South Asia, in Pakistan, Burma, Nepal, even to the South Africa. So this is, just we look at, this is the map of the Mughal Empire, the pre-British period, the map of the pre-British Mughal Empire. So this is the map of the British India. 1765 is the year when the British defeated the Mughal Empire and occupied Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa states. And then it was restored. It left the Diwani, that the revenue administration, and judicial administration of the judiciary that was snaked from the Mughals and had become in the hand of the British East India Company. So first I defined the madrasa. Madrasa, we all know that this is the institution where the Islamic learning and teaching takes place. So now I come to the point. The madrasa in the pre-British period. In the pre-British period, we find two traditions of madrasas in South Asia and India. First, tradition belongs to the ulama from Lahore, based in Lucknow. These are the ulama who introduced the most famous madrasa curriculum called Dars-e-Nizami. This Dars-e-Nizami that was introduced, formulated by Mullah Nizamuddin Muhammad in 1748, who died in 1748. So this Dars-e-Nizami is still going to be followed by the madrasas in Pakistan and all of the South Asia, with minor modification, minor reform. So this Dars-e-Nizami is largely that was formulated to train the legal officers, qadis, muftis, and other state functionaries in the period of Mughal Empire Aurangzeb. And then this Dars-e-Nizami, its focus is more on maqulat. Maqulat, rational sciences, logic, philosophy, mathematics, arithmetic, astronomy, geometry, medicine, fiqh, and moral, and some other things. So this was the tradition that was pursued by the graduates of the Frangilah, and they carried this curriculum to each and every corner of South Asia, even to the South Africa. So this tradition was more predominantly rationalist tradition. And Quran and Sunnah and Hadith only moderately studied in this curriculum. Then we find that this curriculum, this traveled, first adopted at Frangilah, then it traveled from Saharanpur, Lucknow to Saharanpur, to Rampur and Bangar, and finally to Madras and other corners, other areas, other regions. Then we find this tradition strictly followed by other people, especially in Khairabad School of Rational Sciences and Piriapur School of Rational Sciences. Then we find apparel and other tradition that was originated by Shah Abdul Rahim and that was disseminated by Shah Waliullah Muhaddith Dehlvi. This was the parallel tradition, Shah Abdul Rahim and then his son, Shah Waliullah. They reformed this curriculum and they introduced the new one. Their focus was on Quran and Sunnah. Because Shah Waliullah's concern was, in his last days, the Mughal Empire was going to be disintegrated very rapidly. The Muslim Ummah was facing a moral decline, political decline, economic decline, and so many ills. So Shah Waliullah's concern was that how we can stem the tide of this decline and how we can revive the Ummah, revive the Muslim community. So he concluded that this goal can only be achieved through the dissemination of the teaching of the Quran and the Sunnah. So his focus was on the dissemination of Hadith and Quran. So in the Madrasa Rahimiyya, which was based in Delhi, he focused in his curriculum the teaching of the Quran, the studies of the Quran and studies of the Sunnah that gained a key position. So this Shah Waliullah's tradition that was followed by his sons, especially by Shah Abdul Aziz, Shah Abdul Qadir, Shah Rafiuddin, and after them that was carried on by Shah Muhammad Ishaq. And Shah Muhammad Ishaq, when he migrated in 1840 to the Mecca, to Hijaz, then by his two famous disciples, Sayyid Nadir Hussain Dehlvi, the chief of the Ahl Hadith group, and Shah Abdul Ghani Mujaddadi. These are the two people whose contribution for the dissemination of Hadith and Sunnah in South Asia is very, very remarkable. Now we come to the point. So this was the condition, this was the state of the tradition learning, Islamic learning in South Asia in the pre-British period. Now we are coming to the British period. At the advent of British period, a very we can say, very destructive situation come to the point. With the British occupation of Bengal, Orissa, and Bihar, and especially the transfer of revenue administration and judicial administration of the judiciary into the hands of British, all the economic sources of the Muslim elite, they were dried. And at that moment, the madrasas, the most valuable economic funding, the source of funding, that was the grants, and that was endowment made by the Muslim elite, nobles, umara, and such people. But after the British occupation, this source of income dried, and the madrasa system began to disintegrate. So the situation was so hard that Muslims of Calcutta, they was forced to submit a petition to first governor of the East India Company, Warren Hastings, to establish a madrasa in Calcutta. So in 1780, the first madrasa was established by the British East India Company in Calcutta, Madrasa Aliya Calcutta. So this madrasa, its first principal was also one graduate from Ulama Farungi Mahal. So this student, he also adopted Darse-e-Nizami in this madrasa. But after the establishment of this madrasa, in Britain, a great change took place. The Warren Hastings policy was reconciliation. He was making reconciliation with the Muslims. So in his period, he tried to maintain the Muslim law, traditional Muslim law in the law of courts, and even to promote the Oriental learning. But in the same period, in the British, some very influential groups like evangelicals, Christian missionaries, they were maneuvering to force the East India Company to introduce the Christianity and Western education in the South Asia. So evangelical and British, the missionaries, they had their own agenda that was called civilizing mission. Civilizing mission. Because this was the ideological foundation of the colonialism. This was the justification for the colonial policies. Because the colonized, there was supposed that the colonized are backward, they are uncivilized, and the colonial powers, they are morally obliged to make them civilized. More civilized. Make them civilized through the introduction of Western sciences and Christianity. So, this maneuver resulted in the East India Company's Charter Act 1813, and through this Charter Act, the missionaries were allowed to establish their mission and carry out their missionary activities to establish educational institutions in South Asia. And also this made obligatory on the part of East India Company to spend some budget, some money on the education to educate the Indian natives. So after this Charter Act, we find a huge flood of missionaries, Christian missions. They established their mission, and they established the schools and colleges, and they preached the Christianity. So especially the Baptist missionaries in Bengal and North India, and the Scottish missionaries in Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta, Presbyterian and other groups. And especially the Scottish missionaries, their focus was on the dissemination on English literature and language. Their perception was that through the spread of English literature, we can capture the elites of the native Indians. And through the elites, we can gain more influence in India. So this was their strategy. So the result is that English education was serving as a tool of assimilation and Christianization. So this was the core of mission civilization, civilizing mission, to conquer the heart and mind, to make them subjugate, to impose their colonial agenda, and to make more stronger and more everlasting their colonialism. So then we see that emergent in India, in British, we see a great alliance. That alliance was composed of evangelicals, Christian missionaries, utilitarians, and they campaigned for what? For the spread of English literature and language and Christianity. So this influence and this campaign resulted in William Bentinck's resolution of 1835. Through this resolution, the English was imposed on Indian later. English language was adopted as the medium of instruction. And on the 2 years after, we see that the Persian, the state language, the official language of the Mughal Empire, that was replaced by the English language. And in the next, after some years, in 1840, we see that English was made compulsory for the recruitment of state officials. So this was the situation. In this situation, now we will try to find what was the Muslim response. As the Muslim response is concerned, before that, one more point I would like to add, that in this period, 1840s and 50s, the huge corps, the army of these Christian missionaries, they were spreading the message of gospel. They were engaged in extensive debates and polemics with the Muslims. And especially they were telling the Muslim ulama. They were criticizing the Prophet of Islam. They were ridiculing the Quran. They were ridiculing the Muslim values and so many other things. Especially they were supported and patronized and encouraged by the British officials. We see the Governor James Thompson. And then we see the Governor of the United Provinces, Sir William Muir, who authored in 4 volumes the life of Muhammad. And this life of Muhammad, he tried to prove that the Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam disseminated the message of Islam through the bearer of gun, through the sword. And Quran, the teaching of the Quran, is the most extremist enemy of rational civilization and culture. And this was the gist of his life of Muhammad. So all these things irritated the Muslim community, the Muslim ulama. And as the missionaries were telling the Muslim community and the ulama, and at the same time, the conversion crisis were taking place in Agra, in Delhi, and in other areas in other regions. And especially in 1850, we see that some of the teachers, some of the professors of Delhi College, they were converted to Christianity. And this made a crisis. More than 100 of Muslim students, they were withdrawn by their parents from the college. So this was the backdrop, historical development. In this historical setting, I would try to find out what was the Muslim response. Muslim response, there were 3 kinds of Muslim response. That journey is a response journey that begins with the acceptance, approval, then the rejection and resistance, and then acceptance. So first is approval. The question was when the Christian missionaries established the school and colleges, and some Muslims, they go to the Shah Abdul Aziz, who was the head of the madrasa Rahimiyya, and they asked him what we should do, what the Muslim response should be toward the Western learning and English language. and he issued a fatwa, Sharia ruling, and he declared permissible. He declared to learn English, he declared it permissible, but with certain conditions. That its main purpose should not be to serve the East India Company. Its motive should not be a such purpose that sanctions the occupation of East India Company. So this was the basic condition he put forward in his ruling. And after that, after Shah Abdul Aziz, his two other disciples, one was the Maulana Karamat Ali Jaunpuri. Karamat Ali Jaunpuri, he was the first Muslim scholar who issued a fatwa to make reconciliation of the Indian Muslims with the British. He declared a fatwa that India is no more Darul Harb. Before that, I missed one point that Shah Abdul Aziz, the scholar who issued a fatwa after the British occupation of Delhi that India is no more Darul Islam. India is no more Darul Islam. Darul Islam is a place where the political authority rests with the Muslim community. And Muslims are free and independent. And Maulana Karamat Ali Jaunpuri, he issued another fatwa that India is no more Darul Harb. It is Darul Aman under British East India Company. He tried to make reconciliation with the British. And he issued another ruling that the learning of English language and European sciences is permissible. Then we find another disciple of Shah Abdul Aziz, and he is Maulana Abdul Rahim al-Dahri. Al-Dahri means atheist, because he was influenced by the Western learning, Western thought, and he became too rational that he expressed such views that were not compatible with the Orthodox Muslim religious thought. And the ulama named him Dahri, atheist. So Maulana Abdul Rahim, he was also a disciple of Shah Abdul Aziz. So he not only argued for the learning of the European sciences, but he himself acquired proficiency in English language, so that he was appointed a English teacher in Fort William College, a college where the British official East India Company administrator were trained, like NIPA in Karachi, National Institute of Public Administration, that was like the Fort William College. So Maulana Abdul Rahim Dahri, he was appointed as an English teacher in that institution. Then Maulana Abdul Rahim Dahri also translated one of the work in English language in Persian. Yes.
Is it Abdul Rahim, same Abdul Rahim who is the father of?
No, he was another thing. He was Shah Abdul Rahim. Dahri, he is Maulana Abdul Rahim Dahri. He was the father of Shah Abdul Aziz. He is the disciple of the Shah Abdul Aziz. Yeah, this is the great day. Thank you. So this is the first response before the uprising of 1857. Then so Maulana Abdul Rahim Dahri also authored a booklet. Booklet is titled Al-Zaid Darbab-e-Zarurat-e Tarweej Angrezi Ulum-e Farangi, an appeal for the study and dissemination of the English language and Western learning. So he was so much a strong supporter of Western learning and the English language. Then is another phase, the next phase. This is the first phase of the Muslim response to the West, especially to the Western learning and the English language. And the second phase begins with the failure of War of Independence. It is usually called mutiny. I don't call it mutiny. I call it the War of Independence or the Muslim uprising. So that uprising, it took place in 1857. Ulama played a key role in it. Even they They were the leaders in most of the part in Agra and so many parts of India. They led this movement. But unfortunately, this movement, they failed to expel the British occupant forces from India. And its result was very, very saddening. With a complete disintegration of the Muslim community, a huge destruction. This was the result of this mutiny. And when the British power was revived, after 1 year, the ulama became the special target of revenge. Thousands of ulama was killed, executed. Thousands they were deported to Andaman Island, and hundreds of ulama they were forced to migrate either to Hijaz and Middle Eastern countries or to Iran, Persia, and Central Asia. So after this destruction, after this failure, at this critical juncture, some reformers emerged. Among them, Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan and Nawab Abdul Latif from Bengal, and Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan from United Provinces. They were thinking that it is impossible to defeat the British forces, and the best way for the Muslim community to make reconciliation with the British colony. And it is the way of survival for the Muslim to master, to learn, to acquire Western sciences and technology, and to gain proficiency in English or other European languages. So this was the message of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan and Nawab Sayyid Abdul Latif Khan. But Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan movement, which I named is self-civilization, a mission, self-civilizing. First, I talked about the mission, civilizing mission, introduced or launched by the British East India Company. And now the same mission is being promoted by Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan. Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan was of the view that the Muslim community is backward, uncivilized. And to become civilized, it is unavoidable. It is necessity that the Muslims should not only seek modern languages, not only acquire modern science and technology, in addition to that, they should adopt Western social and cultural values and morals in West and each and everything. So his call was for actually a part of Westernization and secularization. So this policy of Westernization and secularization and the imitation of the West that had negative impact of the mind of the Muslim new generation that was the product of Aligarh Muslim University, M.A. Muhammadan College. This new generation that was weak in faith, very poorly with the social and moral values of the Islamic values, they were like a kite that thread has been broken. And as evolving sometimes here and sometimes there. So this was an nutshell that was a result of the Aligarh Muslim University. And especially Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, the mission civilizing mission, and more particularly, in interpretation, modernist and rational interpretation of Islam that irritated the ulama. Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan carrying the authenticity, the historicity of the Sunnah, of Hadith, and he rejected all the purpose of Hadith. This also annoyed the ulama. So these factors, Christianization, Christian missionary educational policy, Sir Sayyid's civilizing mission, these are the three key factors which shape the response of the ulama toward Western learning and English language. So this was the policy of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan. Now we come to the ulama. What was their response after 1857? Ulama had played a role of custodian of faith. custodian of Islamic and Muslim identity, custodian of Islamic rituals, moral and social values. In India and other countries, ulama has always been playing this role. Even we see in Mughal Empire, when Akbar tried to introduce such a reform that was mediating the spirit of Islam, we find the Mujaddid al-Sani telling the Akbar, and he emphasized the orthodox Islam, and he tried his best to eradicate the reform that was initiated by Akbar. So this was a historical role that ulama played as a custodian of faith in India. So at this critical juncture, they adopted a policy that their concern was how we can preserve the Islamic classical heritage, Islamic classical religious heritage, and more particularly Muslim religious and cultural identity. So they concluded that we have only, the strategy was that we should establish madrasa for the preservation and dissemination of Quran and Sunnah, and for this purpose they introduced a defensive approach. Defensive approach means that they should confine their effort only for the preservation of this historical classical heritage. They had no concern with the Western learning or some other thing. So these ulama, especially some of the ulama who were the followers of Shavolula tradition and who participated in 1857 in the uprising of 1857. They established a madrasa at Darul Ulum Deoband. Madrasa that is named Darul Ulum, and that was established at Deoband. That is a town in Uttar Pradesh. Yeah.
What was the year of that?
That year is
1867.
67.
1867.
Yeah. 1867. So beyond its curriculum, its main focus is curriculum is based on Darsi Nizami with minor modification. More emphasis on Quran, Tafsir, Hadith and Fiqh. So this is the curriculum of Deoband. Soon after the establishment of Deoband, some other sister organization, sister madrasa came into being in other parts, in Saharanpur, Madahibul Ulum, Muradabad, and other parts. And within a quarter century, more than 200 madrasas were established in India. And when it graduated, they attracted the students from Central Asia to South Africa. And these graduates of the Darul Ulum Deoband, they established hundreds of madrasas in South Asia. But this focus on the classical heritage and to ignore the modern challenges, this became the concern of also another group of the ulama. Some of the ulama, they were not satisfied. They were not quite happy. They were seeing that the Muslim community has been divided between two extreme ends. One is the westernization of the Aligarh Muslim University, and that is the conservativeness of the Darul Ulum Deoband. So they tried they were thinking that we should combine secular and religious. We should establish such a model, Darul Ulum, where the secular and religious would be combined. So the result of this policy was the Darul Ulum Nadwatul Ulama. Some of the ulama, they founded an association of the ulama, Nadwatul Ulama, the council of the ulama in 1890s in Kanpur. And just after some years, they founded a madrasa, Darul Ulum Nadwatul Ulama in Lucknow. And in this madrasa, some reform, also in this madrasa, Darsi Nizami was adopted, but with some reform. And the uniqueness of this madrasa is that in first time, the English language, and some modern discipline, history, mathematics, geography. This was introduced in the curriculum of Darul Ulum, Nadwatul Ulama. And among the ulama who founded the Nadwatul Ulama, among them is most famous is Shibli Numani. Shibli Numani was of the opinion that we can counter the challenge posed by the Christian missionaries and Orientalists only after acquiring the proficiency in English language, only after becoming familiar with Western philosophy, only after gaining mastery in modern social sciences. Without this, we can't do anything. And he argued for the reconstruction of Muslim theology, modern Ilm al-Kalam. So he argued that we should establish such seminary madrasa where we can impart traditional religious education as well as modern philosophy and Western languages. So we can prepare a class of the ulama who can counter the challenge posed by the Western missionaries and who can also disseminate the message of Islam to Muslim intelligentsia and especially to the West. So this was the purpose of the Darul Ulum Nadwatul Ulama, that this was the goal established by, determined by its founded. So after the Nadwatul Ulama, we see a few other madrasas who followed the same policy. Among these madrasas is Madrasa Muhammadiyya Ara in Bihar, and that was established in 1890 by Maulana Muhammad Ibrahim Arwi. He was a disciple of Sayyid Nadir Hussain Muhaddith Dehlvi. And another madrasa we find is Madrasa Aliyah Nizamiya. That is a great shift of policy in the family of Frangi Mahal. Frangi Mahal, the ulama of Frangi Mahal who introduced the Dars-e-Nizami curriculum. From this family, Maulana Abdul Bari emerged as a strong supporter of madrasa reform. And he established a madrasa in the first decade of 20th century in Lucknow. And in this madrasa, the English language and some modern subject discipline were introduced. And other madrasa we find here, that is Madrasa Ilahiyat Kanpur, established by Maulana Azad Subhani. Now we come to another point. That point is that all the classes of the ulama, that is interesting to note that even those ulama who opposed to include the English language or modern discipline in the madrasa curriculum, especially the ulama of Darul Ulum Deoband. But for one specific goal, all the group of the ulama, they had the same opinion to learn English language for the one purpose, and that is dawah and tabligh, dawah tabligh. The ulama who were opposing to include the English language in the madrasa curriculum, they were encouraging other people to gain proficiency in English, to make a translation of the Quran in English language, to prepare some texts on Islamic history, especially on the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So a group of the ulama of Deoband, the political group of the ulama of Deoband, that is called Jama'at Ulama Hind. We see that in 1926, in one of its annual sessions, it adopted a resolution that we should prepare an English translation of the Quran. But unfortunately, they could not find a single person who had proficiency, who has strength in traditional Islamic learning, and also had good command of English. They could not find a single person in India. This was the challenge. But even after having this kind of experience, they did not think that we should do at our own, and we should introduce English language in our madrasa so that our own students who having required one in traditional sciences, Islamic sciences, they could accomplish the task. And then Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi, a famous alim of the Darul Ulum Deoband, he was urging some scholars like Abdul Majid Abadi to undertake the task to render the Quran in the English language. So Maulana Abdul Majid Abadi, he rendered the Quran into English language on the inspiration of Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi.
It is one of the best translations.
Yeah. And that's the translation that represents the orthodox point of view, traditional Islamic orthodox point of view. And another example we see that Maulana Ahmad Ali Lahore is a famous alim, scholar, who was the disciple of Maulana Ubaidullah Sindhi. He is the first alim, traditional scholar, who learned a journal in English language, Islam. That is Islam in Lahore. He was based in Sherawala Bagh in Lahore. So he is the first English scholar who learned a journal in English language. So now I come to the other phase of madrasa, history of madrasa in the post-colonial period, Pakistan, especially Pakistan 1947 and 202. The partition of the subcontinent caused new challenges for the madrasas, both in India and Pakistan. In both the countries, the government took initiative aimed at madrasa reform intended to integrate the madrasa system into the mainstream educational system. In Pakistan, the modern system of education was promoted by the successive government, and the traditional madrasa system was ignored. And that became in the hands of the ulama, traditional ulama, under the control of the ulama. And especially we see the General Ayub Khan, and after him Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and then after him Ziaul Haq. In this era, several attempts were made to introduce the reform and to integrate the madrasa system into the mainstream educational system. But ulama always resisted. So now my point is that ulama always in India always resisted all the initiative that was either introduced by the British government or by the Muslim government of Pakistan and the Hindu government of India. But another interesting situation developed in India and Pakistan. Among the ulama, certain we see that some people they emerge how we can call reform-minded ulama. Reform-minded ulama. In Darul Ulum Deoband, first of all, Maulana Ubaidullah Sindhi, he was a disciple of Maulana Mahmud Hassan. And in 1930s, when he had visited Turkey and Central Asian state and Russia, he was too much influenced, impressed by the Turkish reform, Turkish madrasa reform, educational reform, and political reform. And after coming back to India, he promoted the idea of madrasa reform. He called to the elder of the Madrasa Darul Ulum Deoband to initiate some reform, to introduce the English language, to introduce the European sciences into the curriculum. But his call was rejected. But after Maulana Ubaidullah Sindhi, in Darul Ulum Deoband, after several decades, a new development took place. This development is unique. First of all, a group of the students, graduates of the Darul Ulum Deoband, they formed an association, Tanzeem Abnai Darul Ulum Deoband. the worldwide association of the Darul Uloom Deoband. This was established in 1990, based in Delhi. The association launched a journal, the Tarjumanul Darul Uloom Deoband. And this association campaigned for madrasa reform. In each and for this association, through its organ, campaigned extensively and influenced the elders of the Darul Uloom Deoband and other traditional ulama to shun their past strategy, to shun off their past strategy, and to reform the madrasa and to reform the curriculum. And other development, the similar development took place, and other graduate of Darul Uloom Deoband, Maulana Adbal, who founded an organization, Markaz Al-Warif in Bombay. And he established two departments, Department of English Language and Literature and Department of Computer Application. He every year extended stipend to the graduates of the Darul Uloom Deoband, and every year he selected a group of graduates, and then these graduates were imparted a language course for 2 years language course. So this worldwide association of the Darul Uloom Deoband and the Markaz Al-Warif established by a graduate of the Madrasa Darul Uloom, both groups campaigned, and due to this campaign, they influenced the thought of the ulama of the Darul Uloom Deoband. So under the influence of these two groups, and especially in the aftermath of after the 9/11 incident, the ulama of the Deoband, they were forced to rethink about their past strategy that was followed for more than 100 years. And the nutshell is that in 2002, the English department was established at the Darul Uloom Deoband. And the selected group of the graduates are imparted English language, and they are also trained in computer application. So this is a historical development, because the Darul Uloom Deoband, that is the mother institution of the 80% madrasa of South Asia. So this was a great departure from its past strategy, past practice. And in Pakistan, due to the several incentives and initiatives that took place in the Ziaul Haq era, and especially the recognition of the madrasa certificate, and to make eligible the madrasa graduates for government employment, such certain initiatives and incentives, they helped ulama to rethink and to provide their past strategies and to make amendments and to reform their curriculum. As a result, for the last 15 years, now in the madrasa, it is primary state and it is secondary state. All that syllabi, that curriculum that is taught in the government school, that is being followed in this madrasa. So my argument, in conclusion, is that ulama always resisted the foreign influence. They always resisted the government intervention because they perceived it to undermine their authority, their independence, and their activity. But internal debate, this has been proved much valuable and much helpful. This is my argument. And now I come to take up some questions. If there is any question, I welcome. Yes.
I'm curious, did the British only try to undermine Islam in India, or did they also try to undermine Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever other religions were being practiced?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I am coming to this point. Actually, mission, civilizing mission, that was not specific to the Muslim religion, to Islam. Because the founder, the architect of this civilizing mission, for example, he is Charles Grant, an evangelical and missionary of British. He was also a servant of, served as a director of East India Company. He authored in 1892 observation, 1792 observation of the state of Indian society, Indian subject. So he concluded that Indian, especially Hindu, he condemned the Hindu society, Hindu rituals, and it is a caste system, and it is worship, it is a ritual. So he concluded that we should, his more focus was on Hindu society, and less was on Muslim society. And his argument that we should introduce civilization, we should try to introduce Christianity and national sciences so the Hindu were ignorant. He used this word, ignorant, uncivilized. They become civilized. So the East India Company's focus was not only Muslim, all the religion were focused. But big time, they have snatched the authority, political authority from the Muslim, and they have threat, the only threat they perceived they had, that was from Muslim. So their focus was also, more focus was on the Muslim community, to undermine them, to subjugate them.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I want to ask one question. Why did you not mention about the madrasa movement in the South India, especially Hyderabad, Bijapur, Bangalore, Mysore, up to the Madras? You did not mention any movement in these areas.
I have a huge material in my laptop and in my mind. And I need 3 days at least to express, to narrate this story. But I have only 45 minutes. So I miss so many things, just to cope with the carrying of the 45 minutes. That's it. Yeah.
Many thanks to you for such an outstanding presentation, to organizers for making it possible. It is unbelievably knowledgeable, and also especially for the Indian community here. It's very knowledgeable and very well done, I would say. And I'm really happy that I have an opportunity to listen to you, and maybe in future, next 3 days, I'll get more chance to see you and discuss. I would love to have a soft copy of whatever you have. I hope. Okay.
Could you kindly explain your view about why most Muslims of the subcontinent oppose the creation of Pakistan? Darul and Ulama.
I think this question doesn't fall into the scope of my presentation. I can talk on this question, but after this session is finished.
Very good.
I've got a question. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one is that you mentioned that after the sort of post to 1857
Yeah.
modifications of those Islamic, that they excluded logic and philosophy, or sort of philosophical principles. Now, these other subjects have all been traditionally part of Islamic learning. So Imam Ghazali, for example, in English, even the famous Tabrizi, Imam Tabrizi, all these had that as part of their madrasa curriculum in other parts of the Muslim world. And I'm wondering why these ulama chose to drop these subjects, even though they were part of Islamic curriculum and not necessarily Western civilization.
Your question is very, very interesting and very important. The subject before God, that was now the philosophy of Ghazali. That was not the philosophy of Shah Waliullah, and that was not the philosophy of the Muslim seeker. That minor text, that was absolutely based on the Greek philosophy, that was old-fashioned, not relevant to the modern question of modern times. So the ulama are thinking that to teach this subject in the madrasa is no more than the wasting of time. I agree with that completely. Because this old text that was based on the Greek philosophy, and the philosophy had great evolution in the 20th and 19th century. The old ideas, opinions that were
Not philosophy,
Yeah.
logic. But on the other hand, they didn't replace it.
Well, not
They
what it is that they could not replace.
didn't replace it.
They could not replace, but they have dropped some of the text.
Just quick, my second question is, what was the view of the ulama in the sort of 20th century when they see the rise of Islamic movements, like the Jamaat Islamiyah, these other movements that you see in the beginning that are also premised on, Islamic identity and promoting Islam and so forth? How did they sort of view these other?
I was just going to address it. It is related to my madrasa curriculum, madrasa system, and such questions. Sorry.
I was just wondering that you mentioned the Christian and Muslim debates at that time, and Rahmatullah
Iran, yeah.
he also wrote the book.
And the favorite, the Mizan al-Haq, that was authored by German pietist missionary Fender. That was a response to
Fender, German Lutheran, German missionary who criticized
pietist.
How did they at that particular time, how they were coping and how they were in as far as stopping the Christian?
Yeah. They were, the missionary, what they were doing, they were preaching in the public places, at the railway station, and all other public places. And the common men, they established some hospitals, they were distributing the medicine, and especially in 1830, there was a great famine in Agra and in the United Provinces of India. Thousands of people, they were died due to this famine. They took advantage of this famine. They established often the houses for the, what we say, orphanage. I'm sorry, this is my second presentation, the first presentation in English. Yeah. So they established orphanages and they converted the thousands of people to the distributing medicine, giving some food. So this was the first part of this strategy. Second part was the preaching. And the third part, they were writing text, booklet, and book, huge book, like Sir William York and Fender. Fender authored so many books, Mizan al-Haq especially the most. So ulama, they were doing what they were doing, they were responding to text, to books. But unfortunately, they lacked the proficiency in Western languages. But at that moment, there was a miracle, one great miracle happened. Dr. Wadir Khan, who was a surgeon, medical surgeon, and a student of medical sciences, and he traveled to Britain, and during his stay, he not only attained his training, more qualification, but also he went thoroughly to Hebrew and Greek and Latin, three languages. And he accumulated huge books on Christianity, Jewish Bible, Christian Bible, and historical criticism of these sources. And when he came back to India, he was based in Agra. He was appointed in Agra Civil Hospital. And Agra was a great center of Christian missionaries. So he determined to respond to Christian missionaries. Then he corresponded to Maulana Rahmatullah Iranavi, and with the collaboration of Maulana Rahmatullah Iranavi, whatever the Maulana Rahmatullah Iranavi had authored, Dr. Wazir Khan was assistant. He was making translation for Hebrew Bible, Jewish Bible, and whatever the criticism was being made on the Jewish sources. So Maulana Rahmatullah Pirangi, with the help of Dr. Wazir Khan, there was great debate took place in Agra in 1850. In this debate, the Christian missionary was defeated. And the offender, he run away. This was,
So, we have learned a lot from you today. My question is that ulama, they were martyred after 1857 in many parts of South Asia. Is there any biographical cataloging of their biographies? Because I understand that in the Andaman Islands, they were let out in the open and they were killed because of illness and disease and other things. Has somebody done any research in establishing their biographies, their contributions, their suffering? Because every nation must do that in order for it to be a living nation, otherwise it forgets all the sacrifices that people of learning made.
Yes. We have not could not find a compact study, compact research. But we find there are several ways. Dr. Moinul Haq, Sayyid Moinul Haq, the Great Revolution of 1857, Dr. Rizvi, 1857 की जंग आज़ादी, Dr. Muhammad Ayub Qadri, 1800 जंग आज़ादी 1857, Dr. Rizvi and other Rizvi compiled a history of freedom movement, history of freedom in 7 volumes, and there is huge material. But there is not. There should be one encyclopedia to put all the information together. But what is there? Information is there. Huge material is there. Even in the British archive and British libraries in British India library in London, there is huge information available on the subject.
Yes. My question is related to Islamic sciences in particular. Which madrasa, like Deoband madrasa or some other madrasas, followed up on the Islamic sciences, which were very predominantly coming from Middle East around 15th, 14th century. And they were, in the time of the Nasiruddin Tusi, there was a lot of research done on Islamic sciences and so forth. My little response to continuation of Dr. Siddique's question was Daratul Ma'arif in Hyderabad was established by Nizam.
Yeah.
And these biographies may have been published by them. And when I go to the next time to Hyderabad, I'll try to locate if there are any.
I am also trying to find out
Yes.
a lot of things from there.
Yeah, I have a catalog with me, and I also have some selections from my library.
Before responding to your question, I would like to draw your attention towards an institution which is almost dead. That is Islamic culture, the Journal of Islamic culture. Unfortunately, due to the lack of financial sources, this publication has been stopped for the last 7 years.
I know. I'm very much in touch with the editor. Editor is a
Shahid Ali Abbasi.
Shahid Ali Abbasi. He has written the foreword of my book.
And Dr. Umar Khalid was doing something for that.
He has written foreword for my book, and he also did the editing of my book. And I will be very happy to converse with him to see if we can preserve some of the stuff they have in their collections. But I think Daratul Ma'arif still may have great deal to do, and he's also the director of Daratul Ma'arif, so Shahid Ali Abbasi. So this will be pursued, inshallah. Your thoughts on Islamic sciences? Do you know any?
So I am doing research on Dr. Muhammad and providing some his document and unpublished writing.
You'll be talking next few days, inshallah.
But nobody can find out anything from here.
Okay. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Al-Yusra to present our guest.
Thank you very much for this informative talk.
Please give them your
Thank you very much for coming, and inshallah, we'll see you in the next gathering. Have a good night.
So, I'm thankful for your patience.
I think maybe that they want to the question basically what thank you very much, Dr. Arshad. This was very, very informative, lot of history there, lot of materials there. I think that I wish that at least few of Pakistani Muslims in Lahore try to know this history. I think the lesson what we learn from this is that ulama try to basically say Islam or Islamic culture, whatever they got. And the other group is basically like other group are neglected, in other words, I will call them neglected, that getting this, getting that, and the reform, Nadwa, and all these are neglected groups. But the main thought which was moving forward here, that you have to bring your own resources and develop your own system. Unfortunately, it did not develop. So all, even the modern so-called Pakistani International Islamic University or Malaysia International University, they are running the same system. It is the same eclectic system, which basically has been practiced. But nowhere so far Muslims have been able to bring their, in other words, based upon their own sources, to bring something which is totally of its own principle.
In the 20th century, at two occasions, that question was addressed. Some people tried to address this question, especially in the 1920s, when the Sahib Brother Aftab Khan was the vice chancellor of India the Muslim University. And the people, they were thinking that the product of a Muslim university is not representing the Muslim community. This is westernized, secularized. The roots are not lying in the Islamic culture, Islamic heritage. So Sahib Aftab Khan, he addressed the Muslim intellectuals and thinkers to submit, to come with some proposal to amend the curriculum and to suggest some remedy. And at this historical occasion, Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, he formulated a sketch of Islamic studies. How we can introduce the discipline of Islamic studies in Aligarh Muslim University, and how we can establish a modern madrasa or Darul Uloom of institution. He suggested that we should combine some graduates from Darul Uloom Deoband and some graduates from Madrasatul Ulama. Then we train them in modern discipline, modern philosophy, economic and political thought, and we impart them the English and European language, and these trained people could undertake this task you are talking about. And at the same moment, Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi, he submitted a huge, very extensive proposal for the same purpose. And this proposal was how we can combine secular and religious and secular to solve the challenge of modernity and modernization. But unfortunately, the Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi, who was the protagonist of this proposal, in his life, I would like to say this, that he could not realize this idea.
No, I think that basically the proposal which was, and that was the reason for into another Pakistan. The problem was that Maududi never believed in that system. He believed that Islam is the only solution. Okay, and first and foremost.
What are you talking about? Your first question.
His whole point was that until and unless we have the political power, educational system or these things will not go.
But he was talking about the reconstruction of religious thought. He was talking about
very right in that.
But before that,
Maududi was very right in this regard.
No, basically he believed.
No, but I think from what I have read
as Dr. Arshad was saying, he wanted, he's written time and again, that he wanted the modern mind to come to terms with the...
Actually, let me say, उनका जुमला था कि ना हम फरंगीत चाहते हैं, ना हम खुदावंद परस्ती चाहते हैं गुरुओं की, और ना अलीगढ़ की फरंगीत चाहते हैं।
हाँ, नहीं want to, लेकिन उसका प्रॉब्लम
ये कहना कि जब तक हम इस मसले पे उससे लिमिट नहीं देंगे, हम कोई देर पास में काम नहीं करेंगे।
Exactly, you're right, but his problem became basically as soon as, in other words, he came to Pakistan, his problem immediately became towards that somehow if we can take over the political power, and that will be the one which will bring the whole thing.
But I think that strategy would not prove fruitful. And that is why now we can find even scholars as well as some.
Thank you very, very much, and I'm so glad that.
I was just wondering, the Qadiani people, was they were a product of the British rule, or did he play any?
No, very interesting question.
Because I heard a lot.
By the way, he has a book based upon his thesis, which is over here. If you wish to purchase it, you can purchase it for $25.
अगर आपको चाहिए तो हम आपकी बात